So this is the end of my first week of the 6 pack in 6 months fast food, junk food diet. And today's probably going to be one of the most important episodes because I'm going to teach you how to control your hunger or appetite.
In today's episode, we're going to talk about hunger and satiety. So hunger, satiety, and appetite, and how are they different? Hunger is the biological need to eat food. Satiety is the absence of hunger or the sensation of being full. Appetite is the desire to eat food. We're going to use these terms somewhat interchangeably in terms of controlling hunger or promoting satiety. Satiety and hunger are controlled by numerous hormones that science is still exploring, but three of the main hormones are leptin, ghrelin, and neuropeptide Y. So leptin is an appetite suppressant, ghrelin is an appetite stimulant, and neuropeptide Y is an appetite stimulant, particularly for carbohydrates. Let's talk about leptin. Leptin is produced by one's fat cells. It signals the brain that there's enough fat in storage and no more is needed. This prevents overeating. Some people become more resistant to the effects of leptin. Leptin resistance can lead to obesity because your brain thinks that there is not enough energy stored, which promotes hunger. Leptin levels decrease when people lose weight, and this is one of the main reasons why it's so hard to maintain weight loss in the long term. The brain believes that there's not enough energy stores and stimulates the hunger mechanism. Let's talk about ghrelin now. It's released from the stomach when the stomach is empty, and it signals the brain to eat. The levels are highest before eating and lowest about an hour before a meal. Just like leptin resistance, overweight and obese people may have impaired lowering of ghrelin levels after meals, so the brain receives a weaker signal to stop eating, which can lead to overeating. Studies have shown that high fructose corn syrup and fructose, which is a kind of sugar, sweetened drinks can impair ghrelin response after. Eating protein at every meal can reduce ghrelin levels and promote satiety. Some studies have shown that this is especially important for breakfast. A breakfast high in protein can lead to less hunger throughout the day. Let's talk about neuropeptide Y now. It stimulates appetite, particularly for carbohydrates. It's highest while fasting, but it can also rise during periods of stress. Very long fasts over 24 hours can dramatically increase neuropeptide Y levels. Eating too little protein may increase neuropeptide Y levels, leading to hunger. Protein and soluble fiber can lower neuropeptide Y levels. So let's talk about controlling hunger. When I was eating significantly more calories before my diet, I was always hungry. I'd be starving before lunch and starving before dinner. Now that I'm eating much fewer calories, I'm actually full all the time. So let's talk about how I did this. Let's talk about the Satiety Index, which was developed in 1995. Foods were ranked based on their ability to promote satiety or fullness. Eating foods that score high on the Satiety Index can help you eat fewer calories overall. So this was the top 10 foods in terms of the Satiety Index. Number 1 being baked or boiled potatoes, which is why I chose baked potato. Actually, it was a boiled potato that I chose for my first meal. I incorrectly called it baked potato in that video as well. I'm not quite sure what lingfish is, and porridge or oatmeal is the number 2 or number 3 item, I should say, and that's why sometimes I'm substituting my breakfast for oatmeal. So let's talk about some of the characteristics of high satiety foods. Protein is the most filling macronutrient. The hierarchy of satiety macronutrients is proteins are the most filling, carbohydrates are probably the second most filling, and then fats are likely the third most filling. Fiber also helps you to feel full for longer as it provides bulk, slows down the emptying of the stomach, and increases digestion time. It's also high in volume, and this fills the stomach. A full stomach sends signal to the brain that it's time to stop eating. So if you choose high volume foods that contain a lot of water or air, that fills your stomach with less calories. You also want to pick low in energy density foods. So that's foods that are low in calories for their weight. Foods with a low energy density are more filling. They usually contain a lot of water and fiber, but are low in fat. So let's talk about fats now. When you think about a type of food or macronutrient causing a feeling of fullness, you have to remember that there are two factors. One is, how does that food or macronutrient cause a feeling of fullness during the meal? And secondly, how does it affect hunger post-meal? Fatty food takes time to digest, so it can decrease hunger after the meal. It also improves hunger by slowing down gastric emptying. During the course of a meal, fat in food increases consumption because it tastes good. Fatty foods are usually low in volume and have high energy density. They contain more calories for a relatively small volume. Per gram of fat contains more than double the energy of carbohydrate or protein. Now, the mix of fat and carbs are the worst combination. Foods that are a mix of fat and carbs, for example, cakes, donuts, and that type of thing, score very low on the satiety index. And that's also because they taste good, so you want to consume more of it. They are high in energy density. They are usually low in fiber. Fiber can be soluble or insoluble, and fermentable or non-fermentable. And it can promote satiety by adding bulk to foods because it is high in volume. It increases the viscosity of food, which slows gastric emptying, or the amount of time that it takes the stomach to empty out, which also promotes satiety. It increases fermenting in the gut by certain bacteria, and that can also help with different hormonal releases that control satiety. And it has low energy density. Now, small frequent meals, this is a good thing or a bad thing. The data is quite mixed whether small frequent meals are better than having three main meals per day in terms of calorie consumption and even just overall health. I do believe in having a low calorie, high satiety snack between breakfast and lunch, between lunch and dinner, and finally after dinner. I believe this will help to control hunger if you're maintaining lower portions or calories in your main three meals.